Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Jeanette. This channel is basically me talking about TV shows, movies, documentaries, and books. Today I'll be talking about the Netflix limited series Unorthodox, as well as the book that it's inspired by. The book is called Unorthodox, the Scandalous Rejection of My Hasidic Roots by Deborah Feldman. What happened was, while I was working in July, I found the TV series on Netflix, and it was probably around the time it came out, and that made me want to read the book. And of course, as a slow reader, I took like almost 6 months reading it, but I got it done. So both talk about one woman's journey living in the Hasidic community and the experience of the reason why they left the community. So the TV series talks about a girl named Esty who escapes to Berlin from her Hasidic Jewish community and tries to start a new life, while her husband Yanki and his cousin Moshe tried to find her and track her down. And the memoir is basically Deborah Feldman's experience growing up in the Satmar Hasidic community, as well as the moment where she decides to leave the community. Just so you know, if you haven't seen the limited series or read the book, there are spoiler alerts ahead. So just kind of letting you know. Also, I'll be talking about some things that may be sensitive to some people, so viewer discretion is advised. The similarities between the book and the limited series is that both Deborah and Esty have mothers who've left the Satmar community and fathers that are not really reliable. They both experience arranged marriages and basically matched up to the first family who accepted them. Both experience the process of getting married. They both go to a mikveh, which is a bath used for ritual purity. And they also get gowns. They have the ceremony, and they perform the rituals of the wedding and such. Both experience with vaginismus, which is a condition, involuntary muscle spasms that causes painful vaginal intercourse, which caused both Deborah and Esty to have difficult time having marital rituals with their husbands, as well as trying to get pregnant. They also experience in-laws that would basically put them down or judge them, and they also had a person outside of their community that in a way helped them get out or helped them get through the day. So the difference when it comes to the book, it focuses on Deborah's childhood and marriage in the Hasidic Satmar community of Williamsburg. She talks about how her mother had an arranged marriage with her father because he was mentally disabled. She even explained that they didn't know if it was a form of autism or if it was some form of Down syndrome, but at the same time, they didn't want to talk to a professional or a doctor because they didn't want everyone to find out in the community and then cause them to have a bad reputation. Deborah's mother later left the family because of the put-downs from her in-laws. This caused Deborah to be labeled as an orphan in the community because she doesn't have a mother in her household. Deborah also brings up the incident where she would have to avoid her dad whenever she sees him in public. And again, it's to avoid letting people in the community know that her father is mentally disabled. When she attends college, she finds out about her mother's sexuality through a documentary that she found at the school library. And this was a documentary where people talk about their experience living in the Orthodox Jewish community and their reasons for leaving the community, which can be one of the big reasons why her mother left the community and the marriage. She brings up about the history of the Satmar Hasidic community.
Okay, so the community I grew up in New York was founded by Holocaust survivors, mostly Hungarian Holocaust survivors, who believed that the Holocaust had been a punishment for assimilation and for Zionism. And they designed a sort of new ghetto in the middle of New York City And they believed that the only way to prevent another punishment, another Holocaust from happening, was to develop a lifestyle that was stricter than any Jewish lifestyle that had been lived before. And every single rule that they designed was like an extreme interpretation of a Jewish law. Mm-hmm. And they lived this extreme interpretation because they believed that they were appeasing God by doing this, and that God would have mercy on them, that he would quell his anger against the Jewish people.
So she mentions a list of things women were not allowed to do or wear. That includes reading. And in terms of reading, they were only allowed to have books that were approved by the rabbi. They couldn't listen to music, not even sing. They couldn't wear pants. They can only wear long skirts and pantyhose. They are allowed to have an education. However, they can only go up until high school level, and most of the education that they receive are mostly approved by the rabbi. So if women want to have a college education, it is limited. So first they have to be approved by their husbands, and once it is approved, they can only do night classes or seminars. They couldn't actually have a full-time job as a student. And they also cannot wear their natural hair. They would have to wear wigs over their real hair. They also have their heads shaved right after they get married, which is also depicted in the Netflix series. There was an incident that Deborah mentioned where the head rabbi found out that the natural hairs they were receiving for the wigs were actually hairs that were donated by people in Hindu temples. It's also in a documentary called Good Hair. And it's basically this religious event where basically everyone gets their heads shaved off. However, many of the people don't know where their hair goes, and most of the time the temples just turn around, sell the hair to hair companies who then basically clean them and kind of sort them and then sell it at an enormous price to vendors who basically sell it to salons and wig shops. So this caused a huge thing, and it caused them to actually have their head rabbi change the regulations and change the rules to only have basically fake hair as wigs. Another was being alone. Women are required to be with another woman or a relative. And then she also states that anything that goes wrong is basically the woman's fault, which connects to her relationship with her in-laws and her husband. During the entire marriage that Deborah had, her in-laws would put her down and would always judge her. When her mother-in-law found out that Deborah was having a difficult time having marital relations with her husband, her mother-in-law actually criticized Deborah for not producing a child and basically blaming her for the reason why they don't have a kid, and not understanding that it could be something more. This causes her husband to join in and also put Deborah down. After his mom tells him that he can't control his wife. And then once Deborah moves to Airmont, she starts to notice the faults in the community. She found out that a member actually murdered his son for masturbating in the basement. And she learns that the people never pressed charges against the guy, and they kind of just swept it underneath the rug. When Deborah started to distance herself from the religion, she experienced kids making fun of her, which is almost a callback to when Deborah was a kid and would make fun of outsiders of the community. In the book, she also talks about her experience having her son during her marriage. So she explains that she had a very difficult process during her pregnancy, and first off, she was having trouble trying to conceive a kid because of her muscle spasms. She would have kind of an autoimmune disorder almost, where it's her body would react to the pregnancy by having rashes or having difficulty just standing up or walking around or even like just doing daily tasks. And then throughout her like pregnancy, her in-laws would claim that, oh, like she's just faking stuff like on purpose, that there's no condition that she has, like, you know, she's just lying. And when she actually goes and gives birth to her son, even that was like an issue because it was happening during like a religious holiday, and she actually had to leave with her husband earlier from this religious dinner that her in-laws were throwing. And basically her in-laws like claimed that she was basically faking it in order to have her husband to herself, not understanding that no, she's giving birth. Another part was that she moved to Airmont, which is a couple hours away from New York City, and then she did this to distance herself from her in-laws. Also, like, the area they moved in is where people of her generation and like newer generations moved to live there in order to avoid their parents and in-laws, because they just felt that it was too controlling, which totally makes sense, totally understandable. Towards the end of her marriage, she started attending Sarah Lawrence College, where she basically lied to her husband that she's just taking like a couple business classes to help get a job, to help with the payments and like living cost. However, her experience at Sarah Lawrence and attending like the poetry classes and a bunch of all these like creative writing classes, it basically changed her life and actually influenced her to experience life outside of the community. And this is where she starts to, you know, wear pants, she starts to like hang out with people, also like understanding like what her community looks like at a different viewpoint. Instead of having a piano teacher, Deborah had her doctor assist her through her struggles. So since the doctor was with Deborah during her entire pregnancy experience, her doctor provides her with birth control, given the fact that her pregnancy was so painful and difficult for Deborah that she, as a doctor, didn't want Deborah to experience that. And she totally understand why Deborah even like brought up like, hey, can you like give me some birth control or help me out? So she gave Deborah birth control like under the table basically. She also helps get other items that Deborah needs, and even stands up for Deborah when her husband is feeling that Deborah is also faking things. So one incident was that when Deborah found out that her husband was having an affair, and this is when Deborah was having like this enormous rash in her nether regions. And so when she went to the doctor with her husband, her doctor actually said like, oh, you have STDs. And even when Deborah, even she was kind of confused, like, how could I get STD? Like, I haven't been to a mikveh. But then the doctor kind of hinted that it probably came from her husband, who so happens to be in the same room. So it was kind of like hinting like, hey, like your husband may be having an affair. I would say like Deborah began to leave her husband and leave the community as a result of the sign that she received from a Kabbalah priest. She goes to this priest by kind of like as an advice from her in-laws, and basically he talks about how like there's like a number 9 and states that that would be her sign. And she ends up having a car crash literally on September 9th, 2009. She was fine. She was totally fine. It was just her car was total disarray. And this was kind of her moment where Deborah's saying like, yes, I need to leave my husband. She even talks about the experience with her husband and how they divorced, or how like they started to talk about divorce. And what happened was that her in-laws were advising them to go to a rabbi for advice. Basically, Deborah lists all the wrongs that she's experienced during the marriage. And basically, even the rabbi was like, yeah, like I think you guys should just, you know, get a divorce, because this is beyond what I can do, because it's more than just her and her husband like having like a fight over like who gets like the last bread piece, or who, you know, who's, you know, why is like her husband like always leaving the toilet seat up. Like, it's beyond that. It was more serious things that's like, yeah, I think you guys should just divorce. In this, like, scene, when this happens, it almost feels that the husband was like, oh, okay, that's totally fine. And it was pretty easy. However, I did notice and found out that Deborah actually made another memoir called Exodus, which focuses her life after the Hasidic community. I think it probably talks about her experience getting a divorce and getting a get, which is a Jewish divorce. And then she also argued that she didn't like the English translation of the memoir. So I may read it, but I may just have it in the back of my mind that it probably isn't what she wanted the memoir to be. So in terms of the series, the show focuses on Esty leaving Williamsburg and traveling to Berlin with nothing but the money that she saved up, as well as her passports and a couple of memorabilia items like her grandmother's picture. So she applies to a prestigious music program at conservatory, and at first it was for piano, but Esty changed her mind and decided to change it to singing, which kind of connects to the whole idea that women are not allowed to sing in the community. Esty also finds out about her mother's sexuality from her relatives. So in the beginning, there is a flashback where Esty's aunt brings up that she is an orphan, so it's difficult for them to find someone to marry her because her mother left the family. Also, her father is depicted more of an alcoholic than a person with mental disability. Esty has difficulty being with her mom at first. She gets to Berlin, but then is like hesitant to even go forward and like saying like, hey, I'm here, I'm in Berlin, because her mom's place was supposed to be her safe house for the time being. However, she just changed her mind and then just leaves. And it was at the point where she sees like her mom with her partner, and it's kind of inferring that her mom is gay. In the climax, Esty finds out that her mom didn't leave her. What happened was that her mom actually took Esty with her when she left. However, her relatives, particularly her in-laws, actually found her and basically took Esty back to Williamsburg. And this is kind of like the moment where Esty realized that her mom actually loved her and was trying to help her out. It's just that she couldn't even fight it because the Hasidic community is different from America as itself. It has like its own police, so it's even difficult to deal with and to get custody back. During Esty's journey, she's hiding from her husband, who ends up finding her, and that whole process of her husband and her in-laws tracking her down almost becomes violent. Her husband brings his cousin Moshe to track her in Berlin. Her husband Yankee goes to Esty's house, her original house, like that her grandparents live, and he finds Esty's piano notes that she had with her piano teacher, and they basically go to the piano teacher and force her to reveal her location. They go to Berlin and they go to Esty's mother's apartment, where Moshe breaks in one day and then finds out where she is exactly. And even Moshe even brings a gun and threatens Esty with it. Yankee tries to get Esty back in the climax once he realized how much put down his parents and his relatives were aiming towards Esty, as well as like his attitude whenever he like talks to Esty, and the fact that he refused to help her out. He realized like, oh yeah, I really need to change, and he even cuts his payot, which is a little ironic because in the flashback he tells her that he wants a divorce after she leaves this dinner party without telling anyone. And this happens right before Esty tries to tell Yankee that she's finally pregnant. This is the point where Esty realized that she really needs to leave the community. Esty has a couple moments when she is with her new friends in Berlin. So at first, she's kind of defensive towards them when they talk about Berlin, the community itself, and because she talks about how she was told that Jews are the victim and that, you know, the Holocaust happened in Berlin, to which her new Berlin friends like state that other people were killed, including gays, Romanis, Polish people, Jehovah's Witnesses, and even Soviet citizens. Her friends also bring up about how the lake that they go to swim, that the lake used to be an area where people would try to swim across in order to escape West Berlin, only to be shot down by military soldiers. There was also a moment where she goes to a German doctor to double check that she is pregnant, because the test results that she made with a doctor in Williamsburg came after Esty already left, to which Moshe and Yankee find out. So the doctor lets her know that she has a choice whether to terminate the pregnancy or not, to which Esty tells her that she needs to repopulate the community, and is inferring to the belief that the Hasidic Jewish are trying to repopulate and to make up for the 6 million Jews that were killed in the Holocaust. What I like about the show, I liked how the way they adapted the book. So I understand the book is based on Deborah's experience, and that other women may have different experience when they leave the community. Some may experience death threats. Some may have a hard time trying to get the husband to divorce them. Again, this whole ritual that not only they had to divorce in the American society, but you also had to get divorced in the Jewish community, which is called get. And then others end up staying, to which Deborah talks about that some of her friends end up just staying and just kind of not even bother to be a rebel, you know, not bother to read books outside of the Hasidic community. Given that, I'm glad the creators of the show covered a majority of what women would have experienced when leaving the community. The show also experienced in activities women are not allowed to do, and makes a callback in the last episode. So in the first flashback of the series, it's basically a scene where Esty's grandmother is singing to an old song and having Esty's aunt arrive like just when she's singing, and then kind of lecturing Esty's grandmother about not singing in the house, and like being like, oh, well, what would happen if someone from the community finds out or like comes in unexpectedly, to which is later Esty saying as part of her audition. So it's kind of a callback to that. It also brings in some of Deborah's experience, especially with her muscle spasm condition and her having a difficult time trying to get pregnant with her husband. It also brings up an experience of like Esty trying on a pair of jeans, which is similar to Deborah's experience. Also with Esty being an orphan in a community, and how they match Esty to the first guy that would accept her, and her relationship with her in-laws, particularly her mother-in-law. The show also brings in Berlin almost as a character based on Deborah and the creators. They are noticing a rise of Jewish people moving to Germany, particularly Deborah's generation, as well as newer generations of Jewish people moving to Berlin. And even Deborah herself even moved to Germany in 2014, a few years after her memoir was published. Deborah explained that there's a large sense of welcoming from the Berlin residents, and it could also be because of the political climate America is dealing with right now. I also like how the creators try to make the depiction of the community right and accurate. They hired Eli Rosen as their Yiddish consultant. He helped with the actors with Yiddish, also helped the creators with the Hasidic rituals and helping them try to depict the rituals as accurate as they can. The creators even went to Williamsburg along with other department heads to see what the community looks like, and even talked to some members who are still in the community. Even the actor who played Moshe, Jeff Wilbush, stated that Orthodox is his story. He actually grew up in a Hasidic community, and Yiddish is his native language. Now, the criticism from the Hasidic community, I wanted to bring it up just so that people can understand. Members of the community have argued that Deborah's memoir is filled with lies about the community and felt the series portrayed a bad image of the community. However, in a Huffington Post article about the memoir, Jesse Kornbluth notes, there are claims in this book that Hasids had disputed. I can't tell what's true, but I'm sure of one thing. Men who can't live equally with women aren't worth living with. No doubt. Girls all over Brooklyn are buying this book, hiding it under their mattresses, reading it after lights out, and contemplating, perhaps for the first time, of their own escape. So I agree with Kornbluth, given the fact that there are multiple women coming forward about their experience and why they left. The Hasidic community does not treat women the same level as men, and this also connects to other religious groups that do the same thing, including Christians and Catholics. There's also religious groups who try to hide testimonies of former members, including Jehovah's Witness, Latter-day Saints, and Scientology, even though it's not really a religion. In conclusion, I highly suggest that you should both read the book as well as watch the TV series. Since the series is from a different perspective compared to the memoir, you can watch the series before you read the book. It doesn't really change anything, but I'm one of those people who love to read the books before watching the adaptation. But that's it for me. Thank you for watching this video. If you like the video, hit the like button, subscribe if you want, not forcing you. My work site is down below in the description if you want to look further into the articles and even the videos I've posted. And I'll see you guys next month. Bye.